He was the kind of man who had it all: wealth, power, and the kind of aura that made people lower their eyes in respect or fear whenever he entered the room. But when it came to love, he was like an empty shell, hollow from within, because years ago he had been betrayed in the cruelest way by the woman he thought he would spend his life with. So from that day forward, he built an iron wall around his heart, rejecting every woman who tried to get close to him, refusing even the most dazzling models and the most influential daughters of wealthy families who would have done anything just to be associated with his name. And his family grew frustrated, for they wanted him to settle, to marry, to carry on the legacy of the empire he ruled. But he refused, saying coldly that he had no time for games of the heart, that women only saw him as a bank balance, not as a man. And soon he became known in the city as the CEO who rejected all women, the untouchable, the unapproachable king of the business world, until fate intervened in a way that neither he nor anyone else could have predicted. For one stormy evening, as he visited a rural branch of his company to check why it was underperforming, he walked through the dimly lit corridors with his usual sternness, his polished shoes clicking against the tiles, when suddenly he noticed a figure crouched on the ground, hands red and raw from scrubbing, a young woman in a faded dress cleaning the marble floor with nothing but a bucket of water and determination in her eyes. And for the first time in years, he stopped, not because she was beautiful in the conventional sense, but because there was something different in the way she carried herself, something unpolished, unpretentious, something that made her glow with quiet strength. And when their eyes met, she didn't lower hers in fear like most people did in front of him, nor did she widen them with greedy recognition of who he was. Instead, she simply gave a small nod as if he were just another man walking by, and returned to her work. And that simple act struck him like a lightning bolt, for he had grown used to women who either worshipped him or schemed for his attention. But here was someone who didn't care at all, someone who seemed to live in a world far removed from the glitz and glamour he had grown to despise. And so he found excuses to pass by her again, watching from the corner of his eye how diligently she worked, how she hummed softly to herself as she cleaned, how she smiled faintly even though the work was grueling and her pay meager. And curiosity began to burn within him, curiosity that soon turned into something he could not suppress. So he called for her one day, his deep voice echoing in the empty hall, and she came hesitantly, wiping her hands on her apron, not because she feared him but because she didn't want to dirty his office. And when he asked her name, she replied simply, "Aisha," her voice steady but modest. And when he asked why she worked such a hard job for so little pay, her eyes glistened as she explained that her father was sick, her younger siblings hungry, and she was the only one who could bear the burden of supporting them. So she had left her village, leaving behind the comfort of her home to work as a cleaner in the city. And though her story was simple, it pierced his heart in a way no elaborate speech ever had, because there was no hidden agenda, no attempt to impress, just raw truth and sacrifice. And he found himself admiring her strength, her humility, her resilience. But he was a man scarred by betrayal, and so he tested her, offering her extra money to see if she would flatter him. But she refused, saying she only wanted what she had earned. And that honesty shook him even more, for he had never met a woman who would turn down his generosity. And the days turned into weeks, and soon he realized that he was thinking about her more than he should, her image haunting him at night, her quiet dignity replaying in his mind during meetings, and the cold fortress he had built around his heart began to crack, though he fought it with every fiber of his being, convincing himself that she was just another employee, just another face among thousands. But deep down he knew she was different. And one evening, when he saw her sitting alone in the courtyard, eating nothing but a piece of bread and tea, his chest ached in a way it never had before, and he found himself sitting beside her, shocking her so much that she nearly dropped her cup. And in that moment, for the first time in years, he laughed, genuinely laughed, and she looked at him with wide eyes, surprised that a man so feared could smile so warmly. And slowly, an unlikely friendship blossomed, one built not on wealth or status, but on sincerity. Yet the world was not kind, for soon rumors began to spread, whispers that the mighty CEO was spending time with a lowly cleaner, and his family was furious. His business partners mocked him, society ridiculed him, saying he had gone mad, that he was throwing away his empire for a woman who had nothing. And even she, Aisha, began to pull away, telling him that she was not worthy of his affection, that she was too simple, too ordinary, that people like her and people like him lived in different worlds. But he silenced her by taking her hand, looking into her tear-filled eyes, and saying words he had never spoken to anyone. I don't care about the world. For the first time, someone has seen me, not my wealth, not my power, just me. And I will not let you go. And though the storm raged outside, in that moment, they both knew that love had found them in the most unexpected way, proving that no amount of riches or status could compare to the purity of a heart that loved without conditions. And when the day finally came that he introduced her as the woman he intended to marry, the world gasped, some in disbelief, some in jealousy, but he smiled, unshaken, holding her hand tightly, for he had finally learned that love was not about grandeur, but about finding someone who saw beyond the mask, beyond the title, and loved the soul beneath. And thus the CEO who once rejected all women found his forever in a rural cleaner who had nothing but honesty, dignity, and a heart that healed his own.